The shuttle was silent except for the faint crackling of damaged circuits. Daniel sat strapped in his seat, staring at the smoke rising from the broken console. The stars outside looked peaceful, but inside his small vessel, everything was chaos. A sudden flare in the ship's reactor had forced him to make an emergency landing on a world that wasn't even marked on his maps. He had been trained for many dangerous situations, but not for this. Stranded on an unknown planet, far from the nearest human outpost. The surface below had looked green and strange when he descended. Now, standing outside, he saw tall, crystal-like trees glowing softly in the air. The ground was firm, almost metallic, yet covered in moss that pulsed as if alive. The sky above shimmered with two suns, one golden, one pale white. His helmet recorded the air as breathable, so he pulled it off and felt cool wind on his skin. He was alone, but not for long. Daniel heard movement. He spun around, gripping the emergency beacon like a weapon. From the crystal forest, shapes emerged, figures tall and graceful, their skin faintly shimmering like moonlight. They wore robes that glittered like woven starlight. Their eyes were bright, glowing faintly as if reflecting inner fire. Daniel froze, not sure if they were hostile or peaceful. The one who stepped forward was a woman, though her features were not like any humans. Her face was smooth, her ears long and curved back, her hair silver white and flowing down like liquid light. She raised her hand, not in threat, but in gesture of calm. Her voice was soft yet commanding. "You are not of this world," she said, each word strangely accented but understandable thanks to the translator patch on Daniel's neck. "No," Daniel admitted. "I'm from Earth. My ship crashed." The woman studied him carefully, then exchanged words with the others in her tongue. After a moment, she looked back at him. "Then it seems fate has chosen you," she said. "Come with us, you are required." Daniel hesitated, but he had no choice. He needed help if he wanted to survive. So he followed them deeper into the glowing forest, his boots crunching softly against the living moss. They brought him to a city unlike any he had ever seen. Towers of crystal rose high, connected by bridges of light. Creatures with wings soared overhead, and the streets pulsed with energy flowing underfoot. The people stared at him, whispering. He knew he was the outsider, and their eyes carried both curiosity and suspicion. The woman led him to a large chamber filled with glowing orbs. The walls seemed alive, shifting and changing like liquid glass. At the center was a circle marked with strange runes. The others waited outside while she entered with him. "I am Liara," she said at last, placing a hand to her chest. "Highborn of the Solari." "Daniel," he replied simply, his voice rough. She studied him. "You came to us at the time of the choosing. It is the ritual we hold every cycle, a time when bonds are tested. Our law requires participation." Daniel frowned. "What kind of ritual?" Her eyes flickered like she was trying to decide how much to explain. "Mating, the union of two beings for the sake of continuation." Daniel nearly choked. "Wait, you mean?" "To us, it is duty," Liara said calmly. "No more, no less. You have been brought because fate has placed you here. I am the one assigned to you." Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. He had expected to be questioned, maybe imprisoned, maybe even helped. But this? He looked at her carefully. Her expression was flat, serious. To her, this was normal. "Hold on," he said slowly. "On Earth, things don't work that way. We don't just decide because someone says so. It's not only about continuation, it's about choice, about connection." Liara tilted her head, as if his words were foreign. "Choice? Connection? These are irrelevant. What matters is that the ritual is completed. To fail is to dishonor." One's line, Daniel sighed. He could see she didn't understand. For her, this was like any other cultural duty, but for him, it was something far deeper. That night, Daniel was given a chamber high within the crystal towers. The bed was firm but glowing faintly with energy, and the walls shifted colors softly like waves. He couldn't sleep. His mind kept returning to Liara's words. She had spoken without hesitation, without emotion. To her, mating was like signing a contract, something done because the law demanded it. But for him, it was more than that. On Earth, people longed for love, for trust, for shared laughter and sacrifice. He remembered his parents who had stayed together through hardship and loss because their bond was more than duty. As he lay awake, he realized something. Maybe this was why fate had placed him here. Not just to survive, but to show them that there was another way. The next day, Liara returned. She wore a robe of silver lined with deep blue. Her hair caught the light of the twin suns streaming through the glass walls. She looked at him with calm authority. "The council expects the ritual to be performed soon," she said. "I have come to prepare you." Daniel stood and faced her. "Before we do anything, I need to understand something. Do you even want this? Or are you only doing it because they told you to?" Liara blinked, confused. "Want? There is no want. There is only duty." He stepped closer, his voice firm. "That's the difference. On Earth, when two people come together, it's not because someone orders it, it's because they choose it. Because they care. Because they see something in each other worth holding on to." Her brow furrowed, the first crack in her perfect calm. Care is weakness. It clouds judgment. Or it gives strength, Daniel countered. Strength to protect. Strength to endure. Strength to fight when you'd rather fall. Liara looked at him for a long time. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. That evening, she walked with him through the crystal streets. The people bowed to her, but she didn't speak. Daniel told her stories about Earth, about families who sacrificed for each other, about lovers who crossed impossible distances just to be together, about friendships forged in battle. Liara listened, silent but thoughtful. To her, these ideas were strange, almost dangerous. Yet a part of her, a hidden part, stirred. As they stopped near a glowing fountain, she finally spoke. "You speak of these bonds as if they are greater than law, greater than tradition. Do you believe this?" "I don't just believe it," Daniel said. "I've lived it." For the first time, Liara looked uncertain. She had grown up in a world where rituals and laws were unshakable. But now, standing beside this human who spoke with such fire, she began to wonder if perhaps she had been wrong all along. And though she did not admit it yet, she felt something new, an unfamiliar warmth in her chest when he smiled at her. The way ritual was still coming, but already it would not be the same. The following days were filled with tension. Daniel was allowed to move inside the crystal city, but everywhere he walked, curious eyes followed him. Children pointed, and adults whispered behind their hands. To them, he was an outsider, a strange being from the stars who spoke in a blunt way and looked nothing like their own kind. Yet they obeyed the council's orders to leave him unharmed. After all, he was now part of the ritual, and that alone made him untouchable. Liara, however, was not untouchable. She was expected to guide him through the process and prepare him for what the council demanded. She carried herself with the same dignity she always had, her silver hair catching the twin sunlight and her robe flowing like water. But Daniel could see her composure was not perfect anymore. His words about choice and connection had shaken her, though she tried to hide it. One evening, she entered his chamber with a bundle of scrolls in her arms. She placed them on the table, the glowing runes dancing across their surfaces. "These are the histories of our people," she said. "The ritual is older than the towers, older than our written words. You should understand it if you are to take part." Daniel opened one of the scrolls carefully. Images shifted on the surface like moving paintings. They showed two Solari figures standing before the council, joining hands as glowing symbols wrapped around them. The ceremony looked more like an agreement than an act of closeness. There was no smile, no warmth, only duty. "So this is it?" Daniel asked. "You stand in front of your leaders, they say a few words, and then it's done?" Liara nodded. "Yes, the bond is sealed and the bloodlines continue." He shook his head. "That's not bonding. That's paperwork. On Earth, it's different. Liara raised an eyebrow. Explain. Daniel set the scroll aside and leaned closer. On Earth, when two people come together, they choose each other. No one forces them. It's not about pleasing the council or keeping bloodlines pure. It's about wanting to share your life with someone. To laugh together, cry together, grow old together. It's about something real. Liara crossed her arms, her face calm, but her eyes unsettled. Real? Our ritual is real. It has kept our people alive for thousands of cycles. Without it, we would fall into chaos. Maybe, Daniel admitted, but you've lost something in the process. You've turned what should be the most human or Solari thing in the world into a cold transaction. Her lips tightened. You speak as if your way is better. Not better, Daniel said softly. Just warmer. Fuller. It gives meaning beyond survival. The conversation ended with silence. Liara left the chamber without another word, her robe whispering against the floor as she walked away. Daniel sat alone, staring at the scrolls, wondering if he had pushed too hard. The next morning she returned, but her tone was sharper. You will not speak such words before the council, she warned. They will not accept your challenges. They will see you as a threat. Daniel frowned. So they'd rather live by rules that kill the heart than hear another way? Rules protect us, Liara snapped. Feelings destroy. Daniel stood, his voice rising. No, feelings save us. Without them, we're just machines. Her hand trembled slightly, but she steadied herself. You do not understand. You are an outsider. You cannot change what has always been. Daniel sighed and turned away. Maybe not, but I can't pretend either. Later that day, the council summoned them both. The chamber was vast, filled with crystal thrones that glowed under the sun's light. Elders sat in silence, their faces sharp with judgment. Human, one of them said, his voice deep and echoing. Do you understand your place here? You will take part in the ritual. You will not resist. Daniel stood tall, his voice steady. I will not resist survival, but I will not treat it like empty duty either. A murmur spread through the chamber. The elders exchanged glances. Liara's heart pounded. She had told him not to say such things, yet here he was, standing unafraid before the most powerful voices of her world. You question our ways? Another elder demanded. I question a world where choice doesn't matter, Daniel replied. On Earth, people aren't forced to bond. They choose. That choice is what gives it meaning. The chamber filled with gasps. Liara lowered her head, ashamed and terrified at the same time. The eldest counselor leaned forward, his glowing eyes sharp. Your words are dangerous, human. They plant seeds of weakness. Do not forget. You are here at our mercy. Daniel met his gaze calmly. And yet I'm here. Maybe fate wanted you to hear another voice. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, the council dismissed them, though not without warning. Complete the ritual as law demands, the eldest said coldly, or suffer the consequences. As they left, Liara grabbed Daniel's arm. Her hand was firm, almost desperate. Why did you speak like that? She whispered harshly. You risked everything. Do you not care what they could do to you? Daniel looked down at her, his expression calm but stubborn. I care. That's why I spoke. Because if this ritual is going to mean anything to me, it has to be more than law. Otherwise, I can't take part. Her hand lingered on his arm for a moment before she pulled away quickly. You're reckless. Maybe, he said. But maybe that's what you need. That night, Liara walked alone in the gardens of the Crystal City. The air shimmered with light from glowing flowers. She tried to steady her thoughts, but Daniel's words kept echoing. Choice, connection, meaning. For her entire life, she had believed the ritual was sacred because it kept their society strong. Love, care, and desire were seen as distractions, even dangers. Yet here was a human who spoke of them as strengths. Worse still, a part of her heart whispered that he might be right. When she closed her eyes, she saw his face, his stubborn eyes, the way he stood unafraid before the council. No one had ever dared speak to the elders like that. It was foolish, but it was also powerful. For the first time in her life, Liara felt doubt not just about her people's ways, but about herself. The next day, Daniel insisted on walking with her through the city. The Solari watched them with suspicion, but Daniel ignored it. He pointed out small details with childlike wonder, how the bridges of light shifted as if alive, how the flowers hummed softly, how the air sparkled when the suns crossed. "You see beauty," Liara said softly, almost surprised. "Most of us walk without noticing." "Because you've stopped looking," Daniel replied. "On Earth we fight to notice the small things. It reminds us why life is worth it." Liara frowned. "Worth it? Life is simply endured. We do what must be done." Daniel smiled sadly. "And that's why you don't understand. Life isn't just endured. It's lived." She said nothing, but her heart stirred again. That evening, they reached a high balcony that overlooked the glowing forest beyond the city. Daniel leaned on the railing, the twin suns painting his face in golden and white light. "Liara," he said gently, "tell me something. What do you want?" She blinked. "Want?" "Yes," Daniel said. "Not what the council wants. Not what your people expect. You. What do you want?" She looked out at the horizon, her silver hair glimmering in the fading light. Her lips parted, but no words came. She had never been asked that question before. She had never even thought about it. Her life had always been duty, ritual, law. Want had no place, and yet standing beside him, she felt something she could not name. That night, as she lay in her chamber, Liara whispered to herself, "What do I want?" The answer did not come, but for the first time, she wanted to find out. The next morning began with an announcement that sent ripples through the city. A storm of strange energy was moving toward the region, powerful enough to disrupt the crystal towers if the city was not protected. The council ordered immediate gathering of resources from the outer forests, where rare crystals grew that could strengthen the city's shields. Liara was assigned to lead one of the groups, and Daniel, being under her watch, was required to go with her. Many Solari whispered against this choice, saying the human was untested and unreliable, but the council declared it necessary. If fate had placed him among them, then fate must also test him. Daniel accepted without hesitation. "If it helps, I'll do it," he said. "I don't plan to sit around while you all do the hard work." Liara looked at him, uncertain. A part of her feared bringing him along, but another part wanted to see how he would face danger. His words about choice and connection still echoed in her mind, though she tried to bury them under layers of duty. The group set out at dawn. The glowing city faded behind them as they entered the outer forests. The air was heavy with strange energy. The sky streaked with shifting colors like liquid fire. Trees stood tall and crystal bright, their surfaces humming softly. Beneath their roots, crystals of rare purity glowed faintly, waiting to be harvested. Daniel carried a small pack with survival tools, while the Solari carried sleek devices designed to cut and shape the crystals. Liara led the way, her silver hair glinting against the strange light. Daniel followed, watching how she moved with calm grace as if the forest itself parted for her. They worked quickly, but it was not long before danger arrived. From the shadows of the forest came creatures unlike any Daniel had seen. Their bodies were dark and sleek, with glowing eyes and sharp limbs. They moved like shadows, silent but fast, their presence filling the air with menace. The Solari gasped, calling them near beasts, predators that thrived on the storm's approach. "Stay close," Liara ordered, drawing a staff of light from her side. "These creatures attack in packs. They will not hesitate." The beasts circled, their glowing eyes fixed on the group. One lunged suddenly, claws flashing. Liara struck it down with a swift motion of her staff, light slicing through the air. Another leapt, and Daniel reacted on instinct. He swung his pack, knocking the creature aside, then grabbed a broken branch to defend himself. The Solari stared in shock. No outsider had ever stood against near beasts before. Yet Daniel did not falter. He fought clumsily compared to Liara, but with a determination that burned fiercely. At one moment, a beast lunged toward Liara's back. She didn't see it, but Daniel did. Without thinking, he threw himself forward, slamming into the beast and dragging it down. Its claws raked his arm, but he held on, teeth clenched against the pain, until Liara spun and finished it with her staff. "Daniel!" she cried, pulling him back. Blood stained his sleeve, but his eyes were steady. "I'm fine," he said, through clenched teeth. "You're safe. That's what matters." Her heart pounded, not just from battle, but from something deeper. No one had ever done that for her before. In her world, each warrior was expected to defend themselves. Sacrifice for another was rare, almost unthinkable. Yet this human had thrown himself into harm's way, without hesitation. After the beasts fled, the group gathered the crystals quickly and prepared to return. Liara stayed close to Daniel, her eyes fixed on the wound in his arm. "You are reckless," she said, her voice trembling. "Why did you do that? You could have been killed." Daniel gave a tired smile. "Because you mattered more in that moment. Where I'm from, you don't just protect yourself. You protect those beside you." She stared at him, her chest tight. His words made no sense to her training, but they touched something hidden inside her. When they returned to the city, Daniel's wound was treated with glowing salves that sealed the cut quickly. Liara remained by his side the entire time, watching him with quiet intensity. She told herself it was duty. He was under her care. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. That evening, she visited him in his chamber. The suns had set, leaving the sky painted with swirling lights. Daniel sat near the window, his arm bandaged, but his spirit unshaken. "You fought bravely today," Liara said softly. Daniel chuckled. "Bravely? More like wildly. But I survived." "You risked yourself for me," she said. "That is unusual." He looked at her seriously. "Not for me. On Earth, it's what you do when you care about someone." Her breath caught. "Care." The word felt heavy, strange. "That is weakness." "No," Daniel said firmly. "That's strength. Caring gives you a reason to fight, a reason to stand even when everything tells you to fall." She lowered her gaze, uncertain. "I do not understand." "You will," Daniel said gently. "You just haven't been shown before." In the days that followed, something began to change. Liara found herself drawn to Daniel, not because of the ritual, but because of the way he saw the world. He spoke of Earth with warmth, of families gathering around fires, of children chasing each other in laughter, of friends standing side by side in war. He showed her small things too. How to carve shapes from wood, how to whistle a simple tune, how to notice beauty in the smallest patterns. Of light, to him, life was not only survival, it was joy, discovery, and connection. Liara listened, and though she resisted at first, her heart slowly opened. She began to smile, a small thing at first, but real. She asked questions she had never dared before. "What does it feel like to love? To trust? To choose?" Daniel answered with honesty, never forcing, only showing. One evening, as they walked through the glowing gardens, she stopped by a fountain of shimmering water. The air was cool, the stars bright above. "Daniel," she said quietly, "when you threw yourself before the beast, was it because of duty, or because of what you call care?" Daniel met her gaze. "Because of care. Because in that moment, I couldn't let anything happen to you." Her chest tightened again, the unfamiliar warmth spreading. She turned away quickly, hiding her expression, but not everyone approved. Whispers grew among the Solari that Liara was changing. Some said she was allowing the human to corrupt her. Others warned that her attachment would bring shame. The council watched with cold eyes, ready to judge. Still, Liara could not deny what she felt. Daniel had shown her a way of living that went beyond rituals and laws. For the first time, she wondered if true strength was not in obeying tradition, but in opening one's heart. One night, as the storm finally drew near and the skies roared, with strange lightning, Liara stood on her balcony staring out at the horizon. Daniel joined her quietly, his presence steady beside her. "Liara," he said softly, "the storm will pass, but something tells me what's between us won't." She looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the storm's light. For a moment, she wanted to deny it, to cling to the safety of law. But then she remembered his hand pulling her back from danger, his eyes steady even when wounded, his voice speaking of care as strength. "I do not know what this is," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But when I am near you, I feel alive." Daniel smiled gently. "Then maybe that's the beginning." And for the first time in her life, Liara let herself believe that the ritual was not destiny, it was choice. The storm finally reached the city. Strange lightning danced across the sky, striking the crystal towers with booming force. Shields of glowing energy rose around the city, but even those flickered under the storm's power. Citizens gathered, in the safety of inner chambers, whispering prayers and hoping the storm would pass without destroying their homes. Daniel watched from a balcony, amazed and worried. The skies burned with light, and the ground trembled under each strike. Yet even with danger above, his thoughts stayed on Liara. She stood beside him, her silver hair glowing in the flashes, her face calm, but her eyes uncertain. "This storm will end," Daniel said softly. "But what comes after, that's harder." Liara's lips pressed tightly. She already knew what he meant. Their bond, whatever it had become, had not gone unnoticed. The whispers had grown louder. The council would act. 2 days later, when the storm finally passed, the summons came. The council ordered both Liara and Daniel to appear before them. The message carried no kindness, only command. The council chamber was colder than before. The crystal thrones glowed faintly, casting harsh light across the room. The elders sat in silence, their glowing eyes watching like hawks. "Liara," the eldest began, his voice heavy, "you were chosen to guide the human through the ritual, yet we see corruption instead. You walk beside him, not as guardian, but as companion." The word struck like a blade. Whispers spread among the other elders. Liara kept her head high, but her heart raced. Daniel stepped forward. "If there is blame, it's mine." I showed her another way of thinking. The eldest's gaze turned sharp. "You admit it freely?" "Yes," Daniel said, "because it's not corruption, it's truth. You treat the ritual like a lifeless rule, but it's more than that. It should mean something." A low rumble of disapproval spread through the chamber. One elder rose. "Your words are dangerous, human. You speak of choice, of care. These are weaknesses that will divide us. We cannot allow such poison to take root." Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to argue, but Liara spoke first. "Is it weakness?" she said firmly. "To protect one another? Is it weakness to care?" The chamber fell silent. The elders stared, at her shocked. For Liara, highborn of the Solari, to speak such words was almost unthinkable. The eldest leaned forward. "You dare question the law?" Liara's voice trembled at first but grew stronger with each word. "Yes, because for the first time, I see that the law has taken something from us. We follow rituals without feeling, without choice. But this, human, has shown me that true strength comes not only from duty, but from connection." Gasps filled the air. Some elders looked furious, others fearful. Daniel's chest tightened. He knew how dangerous her defiance was, but he also felt pride. The eldest struck his staff against the floor, the sound echoing like thunder. "Enough. You have lost your way, Liara. You risk the future of our people with these thoughts. The ritual must be completed, as it has always been, or you will be stripped of your place." After the session, Liara and Daniel were escorted out under heavy guard. Once alone in a quiet corridor, Liara pressed her hand against the wall, her breath unsteady. "They will not forgive this," she whispered. "I have dishonored my line." Daniel stepped closer. "You didn't dishonor anything. You spoke the truth. That takes courage." Her eyes glistened faintly in the crystal light. "Courage will not protect me. If I refuse the ritual, they will cast me out. If I accept it, they will force us into a bond without meaning." "Then we make our own meaning," Daniel said, gently. Liara shook her head. "You do not understand. The council's word is law. To disobey is to be exiled, or worse." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe you can't change everything today, but you've already planted the seed." Some of them were listening, I saw it. Change begins with one voice. Her heart ached at his words. He spoke with such fire, such belief, even in the face of danger. It made her wonder how he carried such strength. That night, the council called for a public gathering in the central square. Thousands of Kalari filled the glowing streets, waiting to hear the decision. Liara stood with Daniel at her side, facing the crowd. The eldest elder raised his staff, his voice booming. "Our ways are tested. The human speaks of choice, of bonds beyond duty." And Liara, our highborn, repeats his words. "This is dangerous, but the law is clear. The ritual must proceed." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, but others looked uncertain. The storm had already shaken their world, and now these words stirred deeper doubts. Liara's heart pounded. She felt the weight of thousands of eyes on her. She turned slightly, meeting Daniel's steady gaze. He gave a small nod, silently telling her she was not alone. When the elder motioned for her to step forward, she did. Her voice rang out clear across the square. "My people," she began. "I was raised to believe the ritual is sacred, that it is duty, nothing more. But today I tell you this. I have seen another way. The human has shown me that bonds built on choice and care are not weakness. They are strength." The crowd gasped. The elders stiffened. "I do not say this to dishonor our ancestors," she continued. "I say it because I believe we have forgotten something important. We are more than law. We are more than survival. We are alive. And to live is to feel, to choose, to protect not only ourselves, but each other." Her words struck deep. The crowd murmured louder now, voices rising with uncertainty, with questions. The eldest slammed his staff again. "Silence! You would tear apart the very core of our people with these lies." "They are not lies," Liara said, her voice steady. "They are truth. And whether you cast me out or not, I will not turn away from it." The council ended the gathering in anger, ordering everyone to return to their homes. But the whispers did not fade. They grew, spreading through the city like fire in dry grass. Some called Liara a traitor, but others, especially the younger Solari, called her brave. Back in her chamber, Liara sat with Daniel, her shoulders heavy but her eyes bright with new fire. "I have crossed a line that cannot be undone," she said quietly. "The council may punish me, but for the first time in my life I feel free." Daniel sat beside her, his voice warm. "That's what choice feels like. It's frightening, but it's worth it." Liara looked at him, and for a moment, she let the walls around her heart fall. "I fear what comes next," she admitted. "Then face it with me," Daniel said. "We'll face it together." Her chest tightened again with that unfamiliar warmth. She knew it was dangerous, but she also knew she could not deny it anymore. The following day, guards came to escort them back to the council chamber. The elders were ready to pass judgment. Liara walked beside Daniel, her steps steady, her decision clear. She had been taught all her life that mating was just a ritual, a lifeless duty. But now she understood, because of him, that it could be more. It could be a bond, a choice, a strength greater than law. And when she stepped into that chamber again, she knew she would no longer remain silent. The chamber of the council was colder than ever before. The crystal thrones glowed harshly, throwing sharp beams across the floor. Liara and Daniel stood together at the center of the circle, while the elders watched in silence. The crowd outside waited anxiously, the whispers of the night before still burning through the city. Everyone wanted to know what would happen to the highborn who dared to speak against the law, and the human who had planted such thoughts. The eldest elder rose slowly, his staff glowing with power. "Liara of the Solari," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "You have spoken against our law. You have raised questions where none were allowed. Such defiance cannot go unpunished." Daniel stepped forward, but Liara raised a hand, stopping him. She would not let him take the blame for her choice. Her heart raced, yet her voice was steady. "If punishment is the price of truth, then I accept it," she said. "But I will not take back my words. Our ritual has become hollow. It binds us, but it does not connect us. It gives order, but it takes away meaning. I will not pretend it is enough." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Never before had a highborn spoken so boldly. The eldest's eyes narrowed. "You are blinded by the human's weakness. You risk the future of our people with this foolishness. The ritual is not meant to please the heart. It is meant to preserve us." Daniel's voice cut through the chamber, strong and clear. "Preserve? What? An empty tradition? You survive, yes, but at what cost? You've forgotten what makes survival worth it. You've forgotten how to live." The elders shifted uncomfortably. Some glared at Daniel, but others looked uncertain. His words struck where fear already lingered. The storm had shaken their confidence, and Liara's courage had made cracks in their walls of certainty. The eldest slammed his staff, the sound ringing like thunder. "Then you leave us no choice. The ritual will proceed. Tonight. The bond will be sealed, and this nonsense will end." Liara's heart pounded. She knew this moment was coming. The council would try to force the ritual, to prove their control. She looked at Daniel, and in his eyes she saw not fear but quiet strength. When the elders called them to the center of the chamber, Liara walked forward, Daniel beside her. The glowing runes on the floor brightened, wrapping around them. The chamber filled with chanting voices as the ritual began. Liara closed her eyes. For a moment she remembered all the times she had been told this was sacred, that this was her destiny. But when she opened her eyes again, she saw Daniel watching her, his gaze steady, his heart open. And she knew what she had to do. "No," she said loudly, her voice echoing across the chamber. The chanting stopped. The glowing runes flickered uncertainly. "I will not complete this ritual as the council demands," Liara declared, "because it means nothing without choice, without care, without connection." The elders shouted in outrage, but Liara raised her staff high, her silver eyes blazing. "This human has shown me what we lost. He has shown me that bonds built by choice are stronger than those forced by law. I will not dishonor myself or him by pretending otherwise." The chamber erupted in chaos. Elders shouted for her removal. Guards stepped forward and the crowd outside pressed closer to hear her words. But Liara's voice rose above it all. "To my people," she cried, "hear me. The ritual is not sacred because it is law. It is sacred when it is chosen, when two beings stand together not because they must, but because they wish to. That is what gives it power. That is what gives it life." The guards hesitated. The people outside began to murmur louder, voices rising. Like a tide, some shouted her name, others cried for silence, but the spark had already been lit. Daniel stepped beside her, his voice calm but firm. "You don't have to follow Earth's way. You don't have to follow only your old way either. You can make something new. Together." The eldest roared in anger, but his voice was drowned by the growing noise outside. The crowd was no longer silent. They were questioning, doubting, some even cheering. The council's control was slipping, and they knew it. One younger elder, her face pale, stood slowly. "Perhaps she is not wrong. Perhaps the ritual has lost its meaning. The eldest turned on her furiously, but the damage was done. Once one elder had spoken, others whispered, their eyes uncertain. The council was divided, and the people outside could feel it. At last the eldest slammed his staff again, his voice shaking with rage. "Enough! If you will not obey, then you are no longer Solari. You are cast out." Liara's heart clenched, but she lifted her chin. "Then so be it. I would rather walk in exile with truth than stand in honor with lies." Daniel placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You won't walk alone." The chamber grew silent. For a moment, even the council could not speak. Then the guards stepped back, uncertain whether to follow orders or the whispers of the people outside. The ritual circle dimmed, the runes fading into nothing. Liara and Daniel walked from the chamber side by side, their steps steady. Outside, the crowd parted to let them pass. Some shouted in anger, but many more watched with wide eyes filled with questions, doubts, and perhaps hope. That night, Liara stood with Daniel on the balcony of her chamber for the last time. The city glowed beneath them, its towers shimmering under the twin moons. Her voice was quiet but strong. "I am no longer highborn," she said. "I am no longer bound by the council, but I am free." Daniel smiled gently. Freedom can be frightening, but it's also the beginning of something new. She turned to him, her silver eyes soft. "When I was a child, they told me mating was just a ritual, a duty. But now I see it differently. It is not ritual, it is choice. And today, I choose." Daniel's chest tightened. "What do you choose?" Liara's lips curved into a small, real smile. "I choose you." The days that followed were uncertain. The council remained divided, and the whispers among the people grew stronger. Some clung to the old ways, but others began to wonder if Liara's words held truth. Change would not come overnight, but the first step had been taken. Daniel and Liara left the high towers behind, walking into the glowing forest together. Exiled, perhaps, but not defeated. Wherever they went, they carried with them a bond not forged by law, but by choice. And though Liara had once believed mating was nothing but ritual, she now knew the truth. It was more. It was strength. It was connection. It was life itself. And for the first time, she felt truly alive.